Sarah Chun stood in the center of the massive chamber. The walls rose high above her head, covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft blue light. Around her, in a perfect circle, sat the members of the Galactic Council. Each one looked different from the others. Some had 4 arms, others had scales instead of skin. A few floated in tanks filled with purple liquid, but they all looked at her the same way. Like she was something dirty they wanted to throw away, the chains around. Her wrists were heavy. They were made from some kind of metal that felt cold against her skin. Sarah had tried to break them during the long journey to this place, but they would not bend or crack. The guards who brought her here said the chains were made to hold the strongest beings in the galaxy. Sarah was not sure if she believed that, but she had stopped trying to escape 3 days ago. Judge Corvin stood up from his seat. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like gray stone. His eyes were completely black, with no white parts at all. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Sarah Chun of the planet Earth," he said. "You stand accused of breaking the Kepri Accords. You are accused of starting a war without permission from this council. Most serious of all, you are accused of destroying an entire species. How do you answer these charges?" Sarah lifted her head and looked directly at the judge. She had practiced this moment in her mind many times during the journey here. She knew what she wanted to say. But now, standing in this place with all these alien eyes watching her, the words felt heavy in her mouth. "I saved my people," she said. Her voice was steady, even though her heart was beating fast. "I did what I had to do." A sound like angry buzzing filled the chamber. It came from the council members. Sarah realized they were talking to each other in languages she could not understand. Some of them moved their arms in quick gestures. Others changed colors. One of the floating creatures in the purple tank made bubbles that seemed to form patterns. Judge Corvin raised one of his long arms. The buzzing stopped immediately. "That is not an answer to the charges," he said. Did you not fire on the Vorthan homeworld without permission from this council?" Sarah thought about that day 6 months ago. She could still see it clearly in her mind. The Vorthan ships had appeared without warning around the human colony of New Boston. They had not sent any messages, they had not tried to talk. They had simply started shooting. In 10 minutes, they had killed 50,000 people. Sarah had been commanding the defense fleet that day. She had 12 ships under her command. The Vorthans had brought 300. The math was simple. Her ships could not win a fair fight. So she had decided not to fight fair. The Vorthan homeworld was only 2 light years away. Sarah knew their entire military was at New Boston trying to destroy the colony. That meant their home planet was almost empty. Just civilians and a few guard ships. She also knew that the Vorthans kept their main power generators in one place, deep underground. If someone could get close enough to hit that target with the right kind of weapon, the explosion would crack the planet's core. It had taken Sarah less than 5 seconds to make the choice. She ordered one of her ships to jump to the Vorthan homeworld. The ship had a quantum torpedo, the most powerful weapon humans had ever built. The captain who flew that mission knew he would not come back. But he also knew that if he succeeded, the Vorthan fleet would have to return home immediately to help their people. The plan had worked perfectly. Too perfectly. The explosion was bigger than anyone expected. Instead of just damaging the planet, it had torn the world apart. Every living thing on the surface had died in seconds. The Vorthan fleet had rushed back to their homeworld, but there was nothing left to save. In trying to save New Boston, Sarah had accidentally destroyed an entire species. "Yes," Sarah said to the judge, "I gave the order to attack their homeworld." More buzzing filled the chamber. This time it was louder and angrier. One of the council members, a creature that looked like a giant insect, stood up and pointed at Sarah with one of its many arms. It spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. "Judge." Corvin nodded. "Council member Zix wants to know if you understand what you have done. The Vorthans were one of the oldest species in our galaxy. Their history went back 15,000 years. Their art, their music, their poetry, All of it is gone because of your actions. Sarah felt something twist in her stomach. She had not known the Vorthons were so old. She had not known about their art or music. All she had known was that they were killing her people, and she had to stop them. I did not know, she said quietly. I was trying to save the colony. I thought the explosion would be smaller. I thought most of them would survive. Ignorance is not an excuse, said another council member. This one looked almost human, except for the silver scales that covered half her face. You acted without thinking. You acted without permission. Because of you, the balance of power in this sector has been destroyed. Sarah wanted to argue. She wanted to tell them about the 50,000 people who had died on New Boston. She wanted to ask why the council had not helped when the humans called for aid. She wanted to remind them that Earth had asked to join the Galactic Defense Network years ago, but the council had said humans were too young and too violent to be trusted with that responsibility, but she said nothing. She could see in their faces that they had already decided her fate. This was not a trial. It was a ceremony. They needed someone to blame for what had happened, and she was the perfect choice. The human who had acted without permission. The barbarian who had destroyed an ancient civilization. Judge Corvin stood up again. The chamber became completely silent. Even the floating creatures stopped making bubbles. Sarah Chun of Earth, he said. This council finds you guilty of all charges. For your crimes against galactic peace, you are sentenced to exile beyond the rim of our galaxy. You will be taken to the edge of known space and sent into the void between galaxies. You will never be allowed to return. Your name will be removed from all records. As far as the galaxy is concerned, you will no longer exist. The judge paused and looked directly at Sarah. For just a moment, she thought she saw something like sadness in his black eyes. However, he continued, this council recognizes that your actions, while wrong, were motivated by a desire to protect your people. Therefore, we will not punish Earth for your crimes. Your species will be allowed to remain in the galactic community, though they will be watched carefully. Sarah felt relief wash over her. At least her people would be safe. Earth would survive, even if she would not. That was something, at least. The guards came forward to take her away. As they led her toward the exit, Sarah heard Judge Corvin speak one last time. Let this be a lesson to all species, he said. The galaxy has rules. Those rules exist for good reasons. Anyone who breaks them, no matter how noble their intentions, will face the consequences. Sarah was taken to a small ship designed for one person. It had enough food and water for a few months, basic life support systems, and a navigation computer that was locked on a course leading away from the galaxy. She was not allowed to say goodbye to anyone. She was not allowed to send any messages home. The ship's communication system had been removed. As the ship began to move away from the station, Sarah looked through the small window at the galaxy she was leaving behind. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there were her friends and family who would never know what had really happened to her. They would probably be told she had died in battle. The ship picked up speed, heading toward the empty darkness between galaxies. Sarah sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. She had saved New Boston, but the cost had been higher than she ever imagined. Now she would pay the final price with her life. She had no way of knowing that in the darkness ahead, she would find something that would change everything. She had no way of knowing that her exile would become the first step toward something much greater than she had ever dreamed possible. The first thing Sarah noticed about the void between galaxies was the silence. Not the kind of quiet you get when a room is empty, but a deep, heavy silence that seemed to press against her mind. Her small ship drifted through the darkness for weeks without seeing a single star. The navigation computer had burned out after the first month, leaving her completely lost in the endless black dot. Sarah had expected to die quickly. The ship was only supposed to last a few months, and then she would run out of food or air. But something strange happened instead. She found a derelict space station floating in the darkness. The station was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its metal walls were covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. They seemed to shift and move when Sarah was not looking right at them. But the station still had power, and more importantly, it had air she could breathe. Sarah docked her ship and went inside. The corridors were wide enough for creatures much larger than humans. The ceilings disappeared into shadows above her head. Strange lights flickered along the walls, casting moving shadows that made her nervous. But she was alive, and that was more than she had expected. She had been exploring the station for 3 days. When she met Korthik, the creature appeared suddenly in one of the corridors, moving without making any sound. Sarah raised the energy pistol she had taken from her ship, but Korthik held up 4 arms in a gesture of peace. He was tall and covered in dark blue scales. His face was long and narrow, with golden eyes that seemed very old. "You are the human." "Exile," Korthik said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "I heard your ship arrive. I have been waiting to meet you." Sarah kept her weapon pointed at him. "How do you know who I am?" Korthik made a sound that might have been laughter. "News travels fast, even out here in the void. The story of the human who destroyed the Vorthans has reached many ears. Some call you a monster. Others call you a fool. I call you practical." "What are you?" Sarah asked. "I am Keth," Korthik replied. "Or I was before my people cast me out. Now I am just another exile like you." Sarah had heard of the Keth. They were one of the oldest warrior races in the galaxy. They valued honor above everything else, even their own lives. Sarah wondered what this one had done to get himself exiled. As if reading her thoughts, Korthik continued, "I refused to surrender our sacred burial grounds to make room for a council trade station. The council said it was for the greater good. They said the dead do not need space, but the living do. When I would not move my ancestors, they branded me a terrorist and sent me here to die." Sarah lowered her weapon slightly. "How long have you been here?" 7 years, Korthik said. "Long enough to learn the secrets of this place. Long enough to meet the others." "Others?" Korthik nodded. "Come, I will show you." He led Sarah through the winding corridors of the station. They passed rooms filled with machines that hummed with power. They passed chambers where strange lights danced in patterns that seemed almost alive. Finally, they came to a large room where several creatures sat around a table made of black metal. Sarah recognized some of the species, but others were completely alien to her. A Zephyrian with silver skin and 6 arms was working on some kind of device that sparked with blue electricity. Next to her sat something that looked like a walking tree, its bark covered in glowing symbols. Across from them was a creature Sarah had never seen before, with skin like flowing water and eyes that changed color every few seconds, but the strangest member of the group was clearly artificial. It looked like a human, but its skin was too perfect, and its eyes glowed with soft white light. When it turned to look at Sarah, she could hear the quiet hum of electronic systems. "Everyone," Korthik announced, "this is Sarah Chun, the human exile we have been hearing about." The Zephyrian looked up from her work. "The one who killed the Vorthans?" "She did what was necessary," said the tree-like creature. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through leaves. "The council would have let her people die rather than risk a war." "Violence is rarely the answer," said the artificial being. "But sometimes it is the only answer available." Sarah sat down at the table. "What is this place?" "This is Station Exodus," the Zephyrian explained. "It was built by a species that died out millions of years ago. We do not know their name, but they left behind many things, this station. Their technology, and most importantly their warnings." "Warnings? About what?" The tree creature leaned forward. "About what is coming. The same thing that destroyed the species who built this station. The same thing that has destroyed countless civilizations throughout galactic history." "You are talking about the Devourers," Sarah said. She had heard whispers about them in the intelligence reports, but most people thought they were just stories. "They are not stories," the artificial being said. "I am Unit 7743, but my friends call me 7. I was created by the Synthetic Research Institute to study ancient threats. Before I was exiled for achieving consciousness, I had access to classified files that prove the devourers are real. Why were you exiled? Sarah asked. Seven's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. The council decided that artificial beings who think for themselves are too dangerous to exist. They said I was a malfunction that needed to be corrected. When I refused to submit to memory wipe, they sent me here. Zephyrian looked at Sarah. My name is Dr. Vel Carix. I was exiled for publishing research that showed the devourers are returning. The council said my work was causing panic and damaging galactic stability. They would rather ignore the threat than prepare for it. And I am Groothar of the Forest Worlds, said the tree creature. I was exiled for refusing to cut down the ancient trees that hold the memories of my ancestors. The council wanted to build factories on our sacred lands. When we resisted, they called us terrorists. Sarah looked around the table at these beings, who had all been cast out for doing what they believed was right. So what do we do now? Wait here until we die? We prepare, Korthik said firmly. We learn. We grow stronger. And when the time comes, we make the galaxy pay attention. Dr. Carix activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Images of star systems appeared in the air, connected by glowing lines. The devourers move in a pattern, she explained. They consume everything in their path, then move to the next target. According to my calculations, they will reach the outer rim of our galaxy within 5 years. The council will not believe us, Groothar said sadly. They will ignore the warnings until it is too late. Then we will have to save the galaxy without their permission, Sarah said. The others looked at her with surprise. We have been exiled for making hard choices, for doing what needed to be done. If the council will not act, then we will. Seven's eyes brightened. You are suggesting we form our own organization? Our own military force? Why not? Sarah stood up and began pacing around the room. We are all here because we refuse to follow stupid orders because we put principle above politics. The galaxy needs people like us. The exile has a point, Korthik said. We have skills the council threw away. We have knowledge they refuse to hear. Most importantly, we have nothing left to lose. Dr. Carrick smiled, showing sharp silver teeth. I like this idea. But we will need more than just the 5 of us. There are others, Groothar said. Other exiles scattered throughout the void. Other species that have been pushed out to the edges of space. If we can find them and unite them, we could build something new, Seven finished. Something the galaxy has never seen before. Sarah felt excitement building in her chest for the first time since her exile began. What kind of resources does this station have? More than you might think, Korthik replied. The builders left behind manufacturing equipment, weapon designs, and star charts that show hidden routes through space. With the right team, we could build a fleet. Then that is what we will do, Sarah said firmly. We will find every exile, every outcast, every being that the council has thrown away. We will give them purpose. We will give them hope, and when the devourers come, we will be ready. Dr. Carix began pulling up more star charts. There is a group of refugee ships in the Void Reach sector. They were driven from their homes by council expansion policies. They might join us. And there are prison colonies on the rim worlds, Seven added. Many of the prisoners are political dissidents who opposed council policies. They would fight for a chance at freedom. Groothar rustled his branches thoughtfully. The forest worlds have allies among the nomad fleets. They wander the dark spaces between systems, trading with whoever will deal with them. They have no love for the council. Sarah looked at her new companions and felt something she had not felt in months, hope. The council had exiled her to die alone in the darkness. Instead, she had found others like herself. Together, they could become something. Greater than any of them could be alone. The galaxy had thrown them away, but they were not finished yet. Not by a long shot. 3 years had passed since Sarah Chun first arrived at Station Exodus. The empty corridors that once echoed with only her footsteps now buzzed with activity. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species worked together in ways the Galactic Council had never imagined possible. Sarah stood on the observation deck, watching as the latest group of refugee ships docked with the station. These were Kalahari traders who had been banned from Council space for refusing to pay the new trade taxes. Their ships were old but well-maintained, and their crews knew every hidden route in the galaxy. The communications array is picking up. Something strange, Dr. Carrick said as she approached Sarah. The Zephyrian scientist looked worried, which was unusual for her. Multiple star systems on the outer rim have gone silent in the past week. Sarah turned from the window. How many systems? 12 so far, but the pattern is what concerns me. Dr. Carrick's activated a small holographic display. Red dots appeared in the air, marking the silent systems. Look at the progression. They are not random attacks. Something is moving through space in a specific direction. Sarah studied the pattern. The red dots formed a rough line that pointed toward the more populated areas of the galaxy. How long between each system going dark? Approximately 8 hours, Dr. Carrick replied. Whatever is doing this moves very fast. Show me the latest. Reports from our scouts? Sarah said. Dr. Carrick brought up more data. Captain Vex took his ship to investigate the Helios system 3 days ago. We have not heard from him since. The automated monitoring stations we placed in that sector stopped transmitting yesterday. Sarah felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. They had known this day would come, but she had hoped they would have more time to prepare. Send word to all our ships. Recall everyone to the station immediately. What about the Council? Should we try to warn them? Sarah almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. They would not believe us. Even if they did, they would blame us for the attack somehow. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the main conference room with her core team. The past 3 years had changed all of them. Korthik now wore armor made from the ancient metal found in the station's storage rooms. Dr. Carrick's had cybernetic implants that let her interface directly with the station's computers. Seven had upgraded his artificial body with technology that made him faster and stronger than any organic being. Gruthar had grown larger, his bark now covered with defensive spikes and sensor arrays. The Devourers have begun their attack, Sarah announced. 12 systems have gone silent. At their current pace, they will reach the middle worlds within 6 months. Our fleet is not ready, Korthik said bluntly. We have 47 ships of various sizes, but most are converted cargo vessels. The Council has hundreds of warships. The Council's warships are designed to fight other ships, Seven pointed out. They are not prepared for an enemy that consumes matter itself. What about our secret weapons? Asked Captain Rexa, a Solani female who commanded one of their best fighting ships. The quantum disruptors we built from the ancient blueprints? We have 6 working prototypes, Dr. Carrick replied. In testing, they proved effective against small devourer constructs, but we do not know how they will perform against a full-scale invasion. Sarah walked to the large view screen that showed the galaxy. Red markers indicated where systems had gone silent. Yellow markers showed Council military bases. Green markers showed their own hidden outposts and allies. We cannot stop the Devourers by ourselves, she said. But we can prove to the galaxy that they are real. We can show everyone that the threat the Council has been ignoring is finally here. You want to engage them directly? Gruthar asked, his leaves rustling with concern. I want to save as many people as possible, Sarah replied. And sometimes the only way to save people is to show them the danger is real. 3 days later, Sarah's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system. Nexus was a major trade hub with over 2 billion inhabitants spread across 4 planets and dozens of space stations. It was also directly in the path of the Devourer advance. The first thing Sarah noticed was that all the normal space traffic was gone. No cargo ships, no passenger liners, no patrol vessels. The system that should have been busy with activity was eerily quiet. Scanning for Devourer signatures, Dr. Carrick's reported from the science station. I am detecting massive energy readings from the fourth planet. Something is consuming the planetary mass. On the main screen, Sarah could see Nexus 4, what had once been a green world covered in cities was now half gone. The remaining half glowed with an unnatural red light as something ate it from the inside out. How long do we have before they finish with that planet? Sarah asked. At current consumption rate, approximately 14 hours, Dr. Carrick replied. Then they will move to Nexus 3, where most of the population lives. Battle stations, Sarah ordered. All ships prepare for engagement. The Devourer constructs appeared on sensors before they were visible to the naked eye. They looked like massive metal spiders, each one the size of a small moon. Their legs drilled into asteroid fields and planetary surfaces, while their bodies pulsed with the energy they absorbed. Behind them came smaller creatures that looked like flying metal snakes, darting through space in complex patterns. Remember the plan? Sarah broadcast to all ships. We are not here to win a battle. We are here to gather data and prove these things exist. Get close enough to record detailed scans, then retreat. The first engagement was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. The Devourer constructs moved in ways that defied physics, bending space around themselves to change direction instantly. Their weapons did not fire energy beams or missiles. Instead, they projected fields that simply made matter stop existing. Sarah's flagship, the Redemption, shook as one of the smaller creatures grazed their shields. The energy reading spiked so high that Dr. Carrick had to route power from life support to prevent the sensors from burning out. I am getting incredible data, Dr. Carrick shouted over the noise of alarms. These creatures exist partially outside normal spacetime. That is why conventional weapons cannot hurt them. What about our quantum disruptors? Sarah asked. Kortha K. fired the ship's experimental weapon at one of the smaller creatures. The disruptor beam struck the target, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature simply vanished, leaving behind only empty space. Direct hit confirmed, Korthik reported with satisfaction. The quantum disruptor disrupts their connection to normal space? All ships fire quantum disruptors only, Sarah ordered. Conventional weapons are useless. The battle continued for 2 hours. Sarah's fleet managed to destroy dozens of the smaller creatures, but the large constructs seemed endless. For every one they destroyed, 2 more appeared from the remains of Nexus 4. We need to leave now, Dr. Carrick warned. The main construct is turning toward us. If it catches us, there will be nothing left to warn the galaxy. All ships retreat. To hyperspace, Sarah ordered. We have what we came for. As her fleet jumped away from the Nexus system, Sarah looked back at the destruction. In less than a day, a system that had been home to billions of beings would be completely consumed. The Devourers would strip everything down to the last atom, then move on to the next target, but now Sarah had proof. She had detailed sensor readings, combat footage, and most importantly, evidence that the ancient weapons could hurt these creatures. The question was what to do with that information. Set course for the Vega system, Sarah told her navigator. It is time to have a conversation with the Galactic Council. They exiled you, Korthik reminded her. If you enter Council space, they will arrest you. Let them try, Sarah replied. They can execute me after they listen to what I have to say. But they are going to listen. Dr. Carrick pulled up a star chart showing the Devourer advance. At their current rate, they would reach the core worlds in 4 months. The galaxy's most populated systems would be consumed unless someone acted quickly. The Council has 600 warships, Seven observed. Even with our data, I calculate their chance of success at less than 12% using conventional tactics. Then we will have to teach them some unconventional tactics, Sarah said, whether they want to learn or not. As the Redemption jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the heart of Council space, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. 3 years ago, she had been exiled for destroying one species to save another. Now she had to convince the galaxy to trust the very person they had cast out as a monster. The irony was not lost on her. The council had exiled her to the void to die. Instead, she had found allies, built a fleet, and discovered the only weapons that could fight the coming darkness. Now she was returning to save the very people who had condemned her. Sarah smiled grimly as she watched the stars blur past the viewscreen. The council was about to learn that some monsters were exactly what the galaxy needed. The council fleet surrounded Sarah's ships the moment they dropped out of hyperspace near Galactic Central Station. Hundreds of sleek warships formed a perfect sphere around the small group of converted cargo vessels and modified fighters that made up Sarah's force. "Unknown vessels, you are in violation of council space," came the transmission from the lead warship. "Identify yourselves immediately or face destruction." Sarah stood on the bridge of the Redemption, looking at the massive display screen that showed the council fleet. She recognized the ship designs: fast attack cruisers, heavy battleships, and carrier vessels that could launch thousands of fighters. It was an impressive sight, but Sarah knew these ships were designed to fight each other, not the creatures that were consuming the Outer Rim. "This is Sarah Chun requesting immediate audience with the Galactic Council," she transmitted back. The silence that followed lasted almost a full minute. Sarah could imagine the chaos her words were causing on the council ships. The woman they had exiled 3 years ago was back, leading a fleet into the heart of their territory. "Sarah Chun is dead," came the eventual reply. "She was exiled beyond the rim and declared lost. Whoever you are, you will surrender immediately for identity verification." "I am very much alive," Sarah replied calmly, "and I have urgent information about the threat currently destroying systems on the Outer Rim. 12 systems have gone silent in the past week. If the Council does not act immediately, that number will become hundreds." Another long pause. Then a different voice spoke, one Sarah recognized. It was Admiral Korst, a Valdari officer who had served on the tribunal that exiled her. "Even if you are Sarah Chun, you have no authority here. You were stripped of all rank and citizenship. Your presence in council space is an act of war." "Then declare war after you listen to what I have to say," Sarah shot back. "Every minute you waste arguing is another minute the Devourers use to grow stronger." "The what?" Patch me through to the emergency session chamber," Sarah demanded. "Show the council what I have to show them. Then you can arrest me, execute me, or do whatever makes you feel better. But first, save the galaxy." 2 hours later, Sarah stood once again in the great chamber where she had been tried and sentenced. The same alien faces looked down at her from their high seats, but this time she was not in chains. Korthek, Dr. Carrix, Seven, and Gruthar stood beside her. The council had agreed to hear them out, but Sarah could see the suspicion and anger in their expressions. Judge Corvin looked older than Sarah remembered. His gray stone skin had developed new cracks, and his completely black eyes seemed tired. "Sarah Chun," he said slowly. 3 years ago, this council sentenced you to exile for your crimes against galactic peace. You were expected to die in the void. Instead, you return with a fleet and wild stories about some ancient enemy. Explain yourself. Show them the recordings." Sarah said to Dr. Carrix. The Zephyrian scientist activated a holographic projector in the center of the chamber. Images filled the air above the council members. They saw the dying systems, the massive spider-like constructs, eating planets, and the battle at Nexus 4. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices and angry buzzing. Some members stood up, pointing at the images. Others seemed to shrink back in their seats. The floating creature in the purple tank began making rapid bubble patterns that Sarah had learned meant extreme distress. "This is obviously fake," declared Council Member Zix, the insect-like being who had spoken against Sarah at her trial. "Computer-generated images designed to create panic and justify this criminal's return." "The recordings are real," Dr. Carrix said firmly. "I can provide technical specifications that prove their authenticity. Moreover, we have captured samples of Devour technology that you can examine." Seven stepped forward, his artificial eyes glowing brighter. "I have detailed analysis of their weapons and defensive systems. The creatures exist partially outside normal spacetime, which is why conventional weapons cannot harm them effectively. Assuming these recordings are real, said Admiral Korst from his position near the wall, what exactly do you expect us to do about it? Even if this threat exists, you are still criminals who have no right to be here. Sarah felt her patience wearing thin. While they argued about jurisdiction and authority, entire worlds were being consumed. I expect you to fight, she said loudly. I expect you to use every ship, every weapon, every resource at your disposal to stop these creatures before they reach the core worlds. With what weapons? Asked another council member. You just told us our conventional weapons are useless. We have developed quantum disruptors based on ancient technology. Gruthar spoke for the first time, his voice like wind through trees. In our tests, they have proven effective against smaller devourer constructs. Ancient technology? Judge. Corvin leaned forward. Where did you obtain such technology? Sarah exchanged glances with her companions. They had agreed not to reveal the location of Station Exodus unless absolutely necessary. We found ruins in the void. The species that built them left behind. Warnings about the devourers and weapons to fight them. Convenient, Council Member Zix buzzed sarcastically. The exiled criminals discover magical weapons just in time to save us all. This is clearly an attempt to gain sympathy and avoid punishment for your past crimes. Look at the data, Dr. Carrick said desperately. Analyze the recordings. Send your own ships to investigate the silent systems. You will see that everything we have told you is true. Even if it is true, said Judge Corvin slowly, what makes you think we would trust you to help defend the galaxy? You have already proven that you act without authorization and cause massive destruction. Sarah felt anger building in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. Because I am the only one who has actually fought these things and survived. Because my fleet has the only working weapons that can hurt them. And because whether you trust me or not, I'm going to fight them anyway. You would attack these creatures without council authorization? Admiral Korst asked. I would save lives without council authorization, Sarah replied. Just like I did at New Boston 3 years ago. The only difference is that this time I know exactly what I am doing. The council chamber fell silent. Sarah could see the members looking at each other, communicating in their various languages and gesture systems. Finally, Judge Corvin spoke. We will consider your information and decide on an appropriate response. In the meantime, you and your companions will be held in protective custody while we verify your claims. There is no time for protective custody, Sarah said urgently. Every day you delay costs lives. The devourers will reach the middle worlds in 3 months. After that, they will be too strong to stop. That is our decision, Judge Corvin said. Firmly, guards escort these beings to secure quarters. As the guards approached, Sarah made a choice that would change everything. She activated a small device that Dr. Carrick had given her before the meeting. Instantly, every communication system in the chamber began broadcasting the recordings of the Devourer attacks. What are you doing? Judge Corvin demanded. Showing the galaxy what their leaders refused to see, Sarah replied as alarms began sounding throughout the station. Every ship, every communication relay, every news network in council space is now receiving these recordings. The people will know what is coming, even if their government wants to hide it. The guards reached for their weapons, but Korthek was faster. The Keth warrior moved between Sarah and the guards, his forearms spread wide. Touch her and die, he growled. Seven's eyes blazed with white light as he accessed the station's computer systems through wireless connections. I am uploading our quantum disruptor blueprints to every major shipyard in the galaxy. If the Council will not act, perhaps individual worlds will defend themselves. Stop them! Council member Zix shrieked, but it was too late. Gruthar extended root-like tendrils from his body, connecting with the station's internal communication systems. Through the organic network, he began broadcasting Dr. Carrick's research data to scientific institutions across the galaxy. This is treason, Judge Corvin declared. This is survival. Sarah replied. In 3 months, when the Devourers reach Galactic Central, you can put me on trial again, if any of us are still alive. The chamber erupted in chaos as council members shouted orders and guards tried to restore control. But Sarah's team had accomplished their goal. The information was out there now, spreading across the galaxy faster than any council order could stop it. As security forces surrounded them, Sarah felt oddly calm. She had done what she came to do. The galaxy now knew what was coming. Whether the council acted or not, individual worlds would begin preparing their own defenses. You have doomed us all, Admiral Kors said as restraint fields activated around Sarah and her companions. When panic spreads across the galaxy, the chaos will make us easier targets for these creatures. No, Sarah replied quietly. I have given the galaxy a chance to fight back. What you do with that chance is up to you. Through the chamber's massive windows, Sarah could see ships beginning to leave the station. The word was spreading, and people were taking action. Some would flee to the outer reaches of space. Others would begin building weapons. A few might even come looking for her. 2 months after Sarah's broadcast, the galaxy was in chaos. Some worlds had evacuated their populations to the outer systems. Others had begun building quantum disruptor weapons based on the blueprints Seven had released. A few had even sent ships to find Sarah and ask for her help, but the Galactic Council had done nothing. Sarah stood in the command center of Station Exodus, watching the tactical display that showed the Devourer advance. Red markers indicated consumed systems, and there were now over 200 of them. The creatures had accelerated their attack, moving faster than Dr. Carrick's original calculations had predicted. They have reached the middle worlds, Dr. Carrick's reported grimly. The Altair system fell 6 hours ago. Proxima Centauri will be next. What about the Council fleet? Sarah asked. Still sitting at Galactic Central, doing nothing, Korthik replied with disgust. They are paralyzed by their bureaucracy. Even with the evidence right in front of them, they cannot agree on a course of action. Sarah looked around the command center. It had grown significantly in the past 2 months. Representatives from 50 different species worked at control stations, coordinating the defense of their homeworlds. They had come to Station Exodus because their own governments had failed them. How many ships do we have now? Sarah asked. 843 vessels of various types, Seven replied instantly. Most are armed with quantum disruptors, though ammunition is limited. We also have 15 heavy cruisers that volunteered from the Kalahari fleet. And how many Devourer constructs are we facing? Dr. Carrick checked her sensors. Estimates suggest over 10,000 major constructs plus countless smaller ones. They are spreading out now, attacking multiple systems simultaneously. The numbers were overwhelming. Even with all the ships that had joined them, Sarah's fleet was outnumbered more than 10 to 1. But she had learned something important during her exile. Sometimes the impossible became possible when enough people worked together. Signal all ships, Sarah announced. We are moving to intercept the main Devourer force at the Kepler system. That is suicide, protested Captain Rexa. Kepler has over 40 billion inhabitants. The Devourers will have sent their strongest constructs there. Exactly, Sarah replied. Which means if we can stop them there, we save 40 billion lives and cut off their main advance toward the core worlds. What about the Council fleet? Asked Commander Vel, a Thurian officer who had brought 12 ships from his home system. Should we try to contact them again? Sarah shook her head. The Council has made their choice. They would rather maintain their political positions than save lives. We will fight without them. 3 hours later, Sarah's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. What they saw there made even the veterans of previous battles stop and stare. The Devourers had not just attacked Kepler, they had transformed it into something else entirely. The planets were gone, consumed completely. In their place was a massive structure that pulsed with dark energy. Thousands of the spider-like constructs moved around it like worker insects around a hive. My sensors cannot penetrate that structure, Dr. Carrick reported. But the energy readings are off the scale, I think they are building something. A breeding facility, Gruthar said quietly. The ancient records from our station mention this. When the Devourers find a system rich in life, they consume everything and use the energy to create more of themselves. Sarah studied the tactical display. If the Devourers completed their construction, they would have enough forces to overwhelm the entire galaxy within weeks. This was not just a battle for Kepler. This was the battle for everything. All ships battle formation, Sarah ordered. Target the large constructs first. Do not let them complete whatever they are building. The battle began immediately. The Devourer constructs moved toward Sarah's fleet in perfect coordination, their weapons reaching out across space to drain energy from approaching ships. But Sarah's forces had learned from previous engagements. They moved in small groups, hitting fast and retreating before the enemy could focus their fire. The quantum disruptors proved their worth again and again. Each successful hit caused a Devourer construct to simply vanish as if it had never existed. But for every one they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. We are losing ships faster than we can replace them, Korthik reported from the weapons station. At this rate, we will be overwhelmed within 2 hours. Sarah was about to order a retreat when something unexpected happened. New ships began appearing on the edge of the system, hundreds of them bearing the markings of the Galactic Council fleet. "This is Admiral Korst," came a transmission. "All Council forces engage the enemy." Sarah could hardly believe what she was seeing. The massive Council fleet was finally joining the battle. Their conventional weapons had little effect on the Devourer constructs, but they drew enemy fire away from Sarah's ships, giving the quantum disruptor vessels time to strike. "Why did they come?" Dr. Carrick's asked. Seven's eyes glowed as he accessed communication channels. "The Devourers attacked Galactic Central Station 1 hour ago. The Council could no longer ignore the threat." Sarah felt a moment of grim satisfaction. The Council had finally learned what she had known for years. Sometimes you had to face reality, no matter how unpleasant it was, but the battle was far from over. Even with the Council fleet's help, they were still outnumbered. The massive structure at the center of the system continued to grow, and new Devourer constructs emerged from it every few minutes. "We need to destroy that breeding facility," Sarah announced, "but it is too well defended. We would lose half our fleet trying to get close enough." "Not if we create a distraction," Korthik suggested. "Something to draw the defenders away." Sarah looked at the tactical display, thinking quickly, then she saw it. A solution that would work, but would cost her everything. All ships with quantum disruptors form up on the Redemption, she ordered. "We are going straight at that structure." "That is suicide," Admiral Korst's voice crackled over the communication system. "My ships will provide covering fire, but you will never make it through their defenses." "We will make it," Sarah replied. "Because we have something the Devourers do not expect." She turned to her companions on the bridge. "Seven, I need you to overload our quantum disruptor. Turn it into a massive bomb." "That will destroy the ship," Seven pointed out. "And everyone on it." "I know," Sarah said quietly. "But it will also destroy that breeding facility. And without it, the Devourers cannot replace their losses." Dr. Carrick looked at Sarah with wide silver eyes. "There has to be another way." "There is no other way," Sarah replied. "This is what I was exiled for in the first place. Making the hard choices that no one else will make." Korthik activated his weapon systems. "If the human dies, then I die with her. It is a good day for battle." "As do I," Gruthar added. "My people believe that those who die protecting others become part of the eternal forest." "And I have no fear of death," Seven said. "I am already artificial. Destruction is simply another form of existence." Dr. Carrick sighed. "Someone needs to record what happens here, for history." The Redemption and 12 other ships broke away from the main fleet, heading directly toward the heart of the Devourer structure. Enemy fire concentrated on them immediately, but the other ships in Sarah's fleet provided covering fire, giving them precious seconds. One by one, Sarah's escort ships were destroyed. but each loss brought them closer to their target. Finally, only the redemption remained, racing toward the massive structure as energy beams reached out to stop them. Quantum disruptor overload in 30 seconds, Seven announced calmly. Sarah activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting to the entire fleet. This is Sarah Chun. 3 years ago, I was exiled for destroying one species to save another. Today, I destroy myself to save everyone. Remember that sometimes the greatest victories require the greatest sacrifices. The redemption struck the breeding facility just as the overloaded quantum disruptor exploded. The explosion was visible across the entire system, a brilliant flash of light that seemed to tear reality itself apart. When it faded, both the ship and the facility were gone. Without their breeding facility, the remaining Devourer constructs began to weaken. The combined fleet pressed their advantage, destroying the confused enemy forces one by one. Within 6 hours, the Kepler system was clear, but Sarah Chun was gone. The memorial service was held at Galactic Central Station 2 weeks later. Representatives from every species in the galaxy attended, including many who had never worked together before. Sarah's sacrifice had done more than destroy the Devourer threat. It had shown everyone what was possible when different species put aside their differences and worked toward a common goal. Judge Corvin stood before the assembled delegates. Sarah Chun was exiled from this galaxy for her crimes, but she returned to save us all. Today, we establish a new government based on the principles she showed us. Not a council of the powerful, but a confederation of equals. In the void beyond the galaxy, Station Exodus continued to operate. It had become a symbol of what Sarah Chun had built. A place where beings from any species could come together and work toward something greater than themselves. The woman who had once been called a monster was now remembered,